And I've even noticed this in my home studio, where I'll come in the next day and I'll record a guitar part, but for some reason it just doesn't blend with the other part that I recorded. And I didn't change any settings, but they just don't blend. Somehow they sound different. And that could be the humidity in the room changed. So now the sound waves are different. And the phase is different because of that, or something. I don't know. That's my guess, but...
The Yoga Connection with Zorananda is a deep dive into the world of yoga, exploring the rich history of tradition, methodology, and practices both ancient and modern. Follow along as yoga is explored through solo episodes to guest interviews to understand its vast reach around the world. Welcome everybody to the Yoga Connection. My name is Zorananda. I have with me today my producer and my mentor and good friend, John Atonic. And today is a very specific episode. We are going to go into behind the scenes of what it takes to produce music. John, in my mind, is just a wealth of knowledge, a virtuoso, and a master in his craft in not only the instrument that he plays, but also in music production. So we wanted to sit down and really dive deep into the music production side that parallels the release of our song Careless. And we're on a campaign of releasing several songs over the next few months. So this is kind of like just an insight into what it'd take to produce a song and then
get it out there.
And
yeah, thank you for having me. It's an honor to share my knowledge with the world, really. So basically we're going to get right into it here. There's three major steps in music production. And step number one is pre-production. Step number two is the actual production, where you're recording. So step number one, you're writing the song and arranging the parts. And then production, you're actually recording the parts. And then step three is the post-production, or the mix and mastering. But before we get into each of those, everybody wants to have a great sounding song. That's the goal here. You want to have a great master. But before you can have a great master, you've got to have a great mix. And before you can have a great mix, you've got to have a great recording and performance of that recording. Before you can have a great recording performance, you need to have a great song. So before you can have a great song, you got to know how to write a song. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens way before that. And once you study enough music and played your instruments well enough, and listened to a lot of songs, maybe played a lot of songs, learned a lot of cover songs, you kind of get the idea of how songs are put together, the structure of the song, and then you can go ahead and start writing your own songs. So that's sort of a tip there in terms of every step before has to proceed with a step that is as good as it can possibly be.
Yeah, and it really speaks to honing your craft, and where not only knowing your instrument, but then knowing the music theory behind it to some degree, because you need to know how to actually put a song together first, right? Like you were saying, and our case is unique because we have been responsible for every part, essentially, from writing the lyrics, writing the melodies, writing the guitar parts, writing the bass, writing the percussion and the synth stuff. And usually you have a band for that, right? So when you're in a band, you're only responsible for one or two things. But then as for us as a duo, we're responsible for 6 or 7 or 8 things. And it makes it a lot more complicated. It makes the process a lot more tedious because from start to finish, we're having to write every single part of it. Right. And so like my job in this like working relationship is to basically come to you with the song finished, right? So to write out the main guitar part, write out the lyrics, write out the melodies. And what's funny about this first album that we released, we basically, or I did it at least, backwards.
Yeah, we kind of did it the wrong way, but that was all because of we had how should I say?
I would say like we had an agreement because part of it was artist development, where maybe at the beginning we didn't really think of it that way until it became obvious that like, okay, there's some things that I need to learn if this album is going to actually see the light of day. Right.
Because I mean, when we started, Zoran hadn't sung a song in his life pretty much, and so he had a lot of learning to do in terms of finding his voice, finding the different parts in his voice, and learning, your basic vocal chops that you need to actually sing a song. So, and that was part of where he would come with me with just an idea. So we kind of meshed the whole pre-production and production all together into one sort of session. So we were kind of same time creating the song as we were recording it. So that's not really something you want to do if you're paying money in a studio that's costing you, let's say, here in Edmonton it would be something like $800 a day with a producer. So on that, we'll get into the 3 steps. So step number 1, pre-production. Pre-production is all about the song, getting a song written, getting it arranged, doing rough scratch recordings of it, so that you can evaluate it later among, let's say, several songs that you've done that for. And some of them you'll just throw away those mixes. They'll be just for evaluation purposes to see, okay, are things working together? Or how does it sound? How does my guitar riff sound with the vocal? Like are they blending together? Is the guitar getting in the way of the vocals? And like doing all that arranging of parts, and how many parts do I need, and experimenting with different parts using, for example, different rhythm guitar patterns, different lead fills, different lead licks that maybe you want to be like sort of constantly repeating in the background or something like that. That's an example. And
yeah, this is where really knowing what you're doing is important, because if you don't really have the knowledge or you don't really have the background in really understanding how your guitar and the chords that you're making is going to blend with your voice and the melodies that you're singing. And this is what ended up happening for me, is that I would come to John with a song, or at least like an idea of a song. And I'd say, okay, well, here's like my first verse, and here's what I do on guitar, and then here's what I do in the vocals. He would end up finding a note here or there that just didn't work. And because that was at a time where I didn't really have the ear training, it was difficult for me to actually really notice the dissonance. And dissonance just means that the two notes that are being played together are not mixing well. They're just making more of like a bad sound, quote unquote, than something that's good.
Example, if you played a B and a C and you played them at the same time, that's a semitone apart. That's
it's not going to match well.
It's a very tense sound. So, I mean, it works in jazz. There's lots of that sort of stuff in jazz music, but not so much in pop and rock.
Yeah.
And yeah, it gives you a chance to experiment as all your heart's content to experiment with different parts and the structure of the song, how it's put together, like intro, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, or whether you want a pre-chorus, or whether you want an intro, and if you have a bridge or not, and things like that, and really get down to like nailing down, okay, this is the song. And adding new parts should feel like they fit right away. If you're trying to add a new part, let's say a drum fill or a guitar lick, and you're just kind of struggling to make it work in the song, then it probably doesn't need to be in the song. You should move on and maybe try something different.
Yeah, and that's
because a new idea, it should sound like it was already there in the song, and you just kind of discovered it.
Yeah, and that's where like a flexibility in ideas is really important, because when you're coming in with a song, and if you're really attached to how you created it, you're going to have a tough time receiving feedback or constructive criticism to enable changes that are actually going to make it better.
Right. And especially if you're in a band situation, let's say there's 4 of you, bass, drums, guitar, and a vocal, and you're writing the songs together, then the egos can get in the way very easily, because, someone's got an idea and they just got to have that idea in there. And it's like, and maybe the rest of the group doesn't think it works, but it's always what works best for the song.
Yeah.
Not, this is my great idea for a guitar lick, Okay, save that idea. And the thing about ideas is like, you kind of have to just say, okay, here's an idea. I'm putting it on the table. It's on the table. It's not my idea anymore. We can pick it up. We can toss it around. We can, juggle it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And we'll move on to another idea, right? And if everybody can have that state of that mentality about their ideas, then there's a lot less aggravation, and you won't lose your momentum in creating what you want.
I think that's the fortunate thing with us, is because we don't have 4 or 5 other people to basically kibosh the process, that it's just you and I. We lay everything out, and we don't have to consult these other members and be like, well, what about this? What about that? Right. So, and because the onus is on me basically to create the song, your role as a producer isn't necessarily to tell me specifically what content should be in it, like what kind of lyrics, or if I should be saying this or saying that, or specifically the riff. It's more so like how to trim things in a way, and how to process things so that there's smooth transitions between like verses and bridges and choruses, and so that the song makes sense in the end. Because I remember this new song that we're recording, we were looking at it, and you're like, well, the chorus from the verse to the chorus just doesn't make sense. We have to change it, right? And then you put that on me. You're like, change it. I'm not going to tell you what to do. Just figure it out and change it. And I figured it out and sent it to you, and you're like, yeah, that's way better, right?
Yeah, and I gave you a few, like, well, here's one possibility, but I didn't exhaust the possibilities.
Yeah.
And in recording this record that we finished, 5 songs, 1 cover song, so 6 songs altogether. That time, Zorananda didn't have a system at home where he could do his scratch tracks, where he could a DAW, for example, and he's got that all set up now. So now he can work before he comes in the studio. He can get all that pre-production done for the next song that we're working on.
Yeah,
and like he'll do a few ideas, send it to me. I'll listen to it and give some feedback, send it back. Until I'm like, yeah, I think you got it, man. Like, we're ready to move into production.
Yeah.
And
and it's a huge time saver, because when looking back in the last 3 years, considering that I'm working full time, and we would only meet up like once or twice a week, and then with holidays and all that kind of stuff too, and traveling, to be able to just sit at home and spend a full day putting the scratch track together on my own, saves us like a month,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
because I would literally spend 4 or 5 sessions coming over to your house just getting the scratch track, right? Because then we'd have to lay something down, and then you'd have to listen to it and make some tweaks, and then I'd have to come over, we'd have to listen to it, we'd have to, you know, and especially at that time when I'm coming to you with incomplete songs. So I'm like, well, here's the intro and the verse and the chorus, and then I've got to write the second verse, and then, you know, oh, I have this idea for a bridge, right? So when I look back on it, though, it was such a great learning experience to have me really understand time management. And then I also got quality time with you, right? So that's where the mentorship kind of came out of it, is that then you were teaching me things about the programs and about the process. So just glad you were down to do that.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of producers nowadays that are going to take an artist and develop them. It's like you've got to be already have done that development on your own before you go out and find a producer to work with. Because, well, you're on the clock with them. That's how it works.
Yeah.
With Zoran and I, we had a different arrangement, so we were able to spend more time in that development process. And normally I wouldn't take on somebody who still needs a lot of development, but it all depends on who it is and exactly what I see as potential in them, and that makes a difference. Sometimes, you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have the drive and you don't have the ambition to really put an effort into it, you know, nobody's going to really want to work with you. But Zoran came to me with such a drive and such a desire and such a and I told him at the beginning, I said, you know, forget about singing, man. You're not going to do it. You're not. And that just made him even more determined to say, no, fuck you. I'm going to be a singer. And he worked his ass off to get to where he is right now.
Yeah.
And it's not like he's perfect, and no singers are, but it's from where he started to where he is right now. It's been a big leap.
Yeah. Thanks for that. And last night I was
you wouldn't be able to do it without me.
Yeah,
so
I know.
That's where having a producer who believes in you and will give you the honest feedback. Is what really makes a difference, because all your friends are gonna say, oh yeah, you sound great, you know, they listen to you at open mic and you're way off key and you're off time and you sound like shit, but they all love it and they're, oh, you sound really good. You know, because that's what your friends are there for, right?
It's the participation claps. You know? It's just the pity participation claps that you went up there and did it, and so people are gonna clap, you know. It's like getting participation trophies, you know. It's like you came in 8th place but you still get a trophy, and it's like, what? But
a real producer who knows what he's hearing, he's not going to pull any punches. They're going to tell it like it is, and that's only to the benefit of the artist to spark that, I really have to get my shit together here.
And to me it was it was a point of trajectory in my kind of life as a musician when I looked at the last 20 years of being a guitarist and seeing where I've come, and getting to a point where I just told myself there's a next level of knowledge and performance that, in order for me to break through a kind of plateau that I was in with guitar, I have to learn how to sing, because then learning my voice as an instrument and training my ear through that is actually going to make me a better guitarist as well. Because then I'm going to be able to hear things with my guitar that I couldn't before. And so it just worked hand in hand. You know, I made a video last week saying, you know, I'm not a singer. I don't consider myself a singer. But it's in a chain of command. I consider myself a guitarist first, then I consider myself a singer, because when I sit down to make music, I'm making the music on the guitar first, and that is the feeling that's informing me on what I'm going to actually sing about. Where more of a singer, or someone who identifies as a singer, they're going to do the opposite. They're going to sit down and they're going to think about, a particular topic or how they feel, and they're going to write out some lyrics. And so when I think about it that way, I still feel like I'm proving to myself that I can be a singer. And I had a moment last night where I was playing and I was singing, and I had this click moment again where I was just singing a cappella and I was hitting every note. And then I'd play it on guitar and I was hitting every note. And then I would listen to the actual song and I'm hitting every note. And I'm like, fucking finally.
All right. So just to sum up the pre-production stage. So you're writing the song, you're arranging it, you're doing a rough recordings of it to be evaluated, to throw away later, and then recreate in the production phase. And so it's all about proving the quality of the writing and the arrangement, and then you've played those parts, your ability to perform those parts once you get into the studio. And that would move on to the next step in production. So in production, now you're in the studio, whether it's, my studio or you've hired a studio to go into and work with a producer. You've got all your parts down and rehearsed, and you shouldn't need 100 takes to get a vocal track or a guitar track or a bass track or a drum track. Usually if you're a band, then you would normally have the drums, bass, and you'd have everybody playing at the same time together to start getting the feel of the sound of the room. You're in a new room compared to your rehearsal space, and in a big studio that can be intimidating. Sometimes you're going to be nervous. You're going to have an engineer there and a producer and maybe even another assistant who's going to be in and out of the live room, tweaking stuff. And so the first day in the studio, you might not even record any parts. You're going to basically just be setting up and finding what sounds work, finding, what kind of guitar sound I want, tweaking your amp, what kind of bass sound, and the drummer is going to be tuning his drums and figuring out basically what is the song going to sound like in the studio now. You probably got it already roughly figured out with your pre-production, and now you're going to tweak what the final sounds are going to be like.
Yeah, because what you hear on the radio is never ever what we start with. What we start with is like the raw sound of the song. And John emphasizes this all the time, is that your first mix should still be bang on. It should still sound really good. And that's before any alterations to it as well. But coming into a studio and getting everything set up, and you're taking that raw sound and that raw version, and then now you're beginning the process of transforming it so that it can be presented as this awesome thing. Yeah,
and the goal there is to get the best human performances of the parts that you're playing. We're not looking at getting a perfect vocal take or a perfect guitar take. Even though we're playing to a click track, nobody can play perfectly to a click track. It's just humanly impossible. And so that's the goal of working with the producer. They're there to bring out the best in you that you've got at that time, at that level of skill that you're at, whether it's playing guitar, bass, drums, whatever, singing. And again, it shouldn't take you hundreds of takes. If you need to do that many takes, then you're not ready to go in a studio. You need to do more rehearsal at home or in your rehearsal space with the band, or either solo if you're just a solo artist who's playing all the parts and vocals.
Yeah, and we definitely had moments like that. I'd come over to John's house, and if we're recording a guitar part, it wasn't really the guitar parts. I think some of the times you'd be like, you need to work on this part a little bit more, but it was definitely the vocals where I'd come in and I just wasn't ready. And you've got to be able to accept what limitations you have, and to be completely ready is to like really have everything nailed down, everything memorized almost perfectly. But to allow there to be room for your humanness, and it's not that like you're making mistakes or that you're purposely making it imperfect. It's that there are elements to it that show up that make it noticeably real, and so that it's not robotic, and that it's not put together in a way where it's like scrubbed from what are called like artifacts or little imperfections.
Right. And if you don't do pre-production, then you're going to end up having that pre-production impose itself in the production phase, which if you're hiring a studio, like around here, it's around $800 a day. That's going to cost you a lot of money. You're going to have to, unless you've got a budget, and some bands do that, they're already rich people. They can afford to hire a studio and a producer and an engineer, and without even having a song yet, and just go, okay, let's go in and write a song. All right, no problem. $800 a day, sure, no problem. I'll just put it on my American Express. They might spend a week in the studio and come out with a great song. Like, it's not undoable, not doable.
Yeah.
So,
and I would say though, like the exception is those are going to be bands that are already on a label, they're already established, and they're tried and tested, and that's their job, right? So now their job is to show up to the studio and work 8 hours, right?
Yeah,
so it's like they're recording stuff that they've already rehearsed, and they're writing new stuff. Yeah, it
reminds me of Oasis. If any of you still remember the band Oasis, the Wonderwall song. Yeah, one of their last albums, they decided not to go in a studio. They made their own studio in one of their houses, and had all this gear brought in and engineers to wire it all up, and the funny thing was that they didn't even have any songs yet. They just, because it was their own studio, sure, they paid, I don't know, $100,000 for all the gear and everything.
Yeah.
But they didn't care. They wanted to do it their ways. And the guitar player who usually wrote all the songs and lyrics, he just came in there with, here's my guitar, progression and my lyrics. And the singer didn't even know what he was going to sing. They would just hit record, and away they go. And they came up with an album like that.
Wow.
And those are exceptions. Like, not many bands can work that way.
Yeah, just keep talking.
So that's really important to do pre-pro, because it will impose itself in the production if you don't. And that also, can cause you to lose momentum in doing your song, because now you've got a whole bunch of tracks that you've done, and you go back and you have to fix all these different things with overdubs, and you're, getting impatient, losing momentum with the whole process. And it's like, it can be a real headache. And then maybe, a year later, you finally get the song done.
Yeah.
Because when you start doing overdubs, you can come in one day, and the next day you can have, let's say you're overdubbing a guitar part. And I've even noticed this in my home studio, where I'll come in the next day and I'll record a guitar part, but for some reason it just doesn't blend with the other part that I recorded. And I didn't change any settings, but they just don't blend. Somehow they sound different. And that could be the humidity in the room changed. So now the sound waves are different, and the phase is different because of that, or something. I don't know. That's my guess, but
yeah,
it's
I know we had like some of those issues, even on this like album, with like, we'd be recording vocals on one day, and it takes us 2 or 3 hours, and by the end of it, I'm like feeling fatigued, and so we have to stop, then we have to go next, and then I'd be singing and we'd compare and we'd notice like differences, right? And then that's where like there's like an extra layer of mixing that then has to go into it. And it's almost unavoidable unless you have all your pre-production done, you have everything nailed in, and you can do all those things in one day.
Right. And usually how that might work with the band situation is that you've laid down, once you've got all everything set up and level checked and ready to go, the next day you come back and you actually start recording tracks. And you have the whole band doing everything, playing at the same time. And they're all in their little isolated areas in the studio, in the live room. And then you'll sit back and you'll listen to what you got, and then you'll refine your parts. It'll be like, okay, the vocal part was just a scratch track, it's just a guide track to get through. Now you're going to refine. Maybe you want to have just the bass player and drummer play, and refine the groove, and the guitar player play along with them, without the vocalist, to really nail down that groove that the rhythm section has. And then it'll be like, okay, yeah, we got a great bass track and we got a great drum track. Now we go and we redo the guitar part to go along with that, because the guitar part we weren't really worried about. We were going for a really good bass and drum track. The guitar part, he could have made mistakes, doesn't matter, because we're going to redo that anyway. So then the next day you're in there and you're redoing the guitar parts. And then once that's all down, then maybe you'll have another double guitar part that'll come in. And then once that's all done, and then the final one will be the vocal. It will be the final one to put down. And then you've got your basis of a mix.
Because like what people typically don't know is when they're listening to a song and they're hearing the guitar part, that's not just one guitar. Even though it's just one guitar riff, there could be 3 or 4 guitars. Tracks, like layers that are making it into the sound that you hear. I remember watching a video about Nirvana and doing that exact thing, where on one of their songs the engineer was like, you know what, it's not enough just having it doubled, we're gonna quadruple it. And then it just like the layers just add a body to it that makes it the sound that it is, because they're looking for a grungy kind of sound. And for that band particularly, they needed to do that to really match the like grittiness of his voice.
Right. And it's like if you think of a symphony orchestra, if you have one violin playing the part, you know what one violin sounds like, pretty, right? But then you add a whole string section, a violin section that has like 20 violins in it, and all of a sudden you get this huge full sound.
Yeah.
All playing the same thing, exactly the same thing in the exact same timing. And it creates just so many more voices that sound so much bigger than just that one single violin. So same idea.
Yeah.
Same idea. And sometimes the goal isn't always to have like the best perfect song and to do all this pre-production for a month or 2 or whatever, and writing the song and getting all the parts down. And sometimes you just want to fast track the process and saying, okay, what's the best that we can do in a week? Let's go in the studio, or, let's take a couple of days to like, we already been working on the song a little bit in rehearsal, and let's just now go in the studio and let's just do the best we can and get it done in a week, like to kind of fast track things. Cause everything doesn't have to be perfect. You just want it, with that kind of goal, then it's like, yeah, we just want to get stuff out there.
Yeah.
Because people, they really don't care whether, they use triple, quadruple guitar layers or how many whatever how detailed that mix was. They don't really care. They just they just want to hear a song that has some kind of emotional response for them, whether it's good or bad, or reminds them of something that they can relate to. So
yeah, with Careless, we've heard that song like 1,000 times.
I'm sick of it, man. I can't get it out of my head. I wake up in the morning and going, where have you lost your chaos? Okay.
So when you've heard it that many times from beginning to end, like the very first iteration is raw form all the way till it's final, and then you've even listened to the final version so many times, there are little things that you're going to hear and you're going to notice that you might not like, that you just can't do anything about. I know, like, there are these little elements. I'm not going to say what they are because I don't want to bring attention to them so that people can just like, but there are these like elements to it that I'm like, I wish we could re-record some of these things to get rid of them, but it's at a point where it's like, no, you have to move on. You've done what you've done. And for the most part, people are going to hear that song, you know, at least right now in this stage, in its entirety, maybe a few times, you know, like I'm going to be like, kind of like battering it into social media for the next 6 weeks. Right. So people are going to be hearing it a lot more on social media, but for the most part, people don't have the ear of a musician. You know, they don't have the training to be able to hear the things that we would hear. They're just going to hear the totality of it. And so I've had like quite a few people now tell me like that it's a banger. They're like, man, this song is awesome. Like you did a really good job on everything. Right. And I've had some actual musicians even tell me like, man, the bass is super like punchy and yeah. And so having musicians tell me that they love the vocals, they love the lyrics, they love the guitar solo, then tells me it's like, oh, I can relax on my overthinking of things and to know that we did a great job.
Yeah. And it's going to be like that for pretty much everybody who putting out music. They'll listen to stuff they did like a year ago or last month or whatever. Yeah. It's like, oh, I wish I would have done this instead or changed that or whatever. And it's like, but you just take that and you say, okay, we'll use that in the next song.
Yeah, exactly.
Or, you know, we'll improve on it in the next song if it was something that couldn't be improved upon. Yeah. As far as something being different in the mix or whatever, like, you know, you can have send your tracks out to like 10 different mixing engineers and they're all going to have a different sounding mix. Doesn't mean one is good and one is bad. Like as long as, you know, everything sounds level and everything's hitting the right spots. It's not about, oh, is that a good mix or is that a good mix? You know, no, you can only get so good in a mix. Then you hit a brick wall, you hit a ceiling. Whereas okay, well, we can change this or that, but it's not going to make it a better mix. It's just going to make it different.
Yeah.
And getting back to like, parts that you just come up in production, you will have things happen where, we think of something as a mistake might happen in, you know, any part. It could be in a vocal part, a guitar part, whatever. And at first it's like, oh, I fucked up on that. And then you listen to it back and say, hey, wait a minute. That's actually better than what I originally had. And so you don't want to limit that spontaneity that can happen in the studio.
Yeah.
Where, well, we call it when the magic happens in the studio. It's like,
yeah. We definitely had several moments.
And one good example was in Careless is in the choruses, you'll hear the layered double guitar parts that are panned to the right and left, the rhythm guitar parts.
Yeah.
They're playing exactly the same rhythm, but at a certain point, one of them goes off, and it was kind of a mistake in that it went off playing. It didn't play the same thing as the other one. And I'm listening to it a few times, and I'm thinking, okay, well, it was kind of off time too. So I fudged the time a little bit so it was more on time. And once it was on time with the band, it had such a neat effect, diverting from the doubling to all of a sudden it's doing its own kind of thing in a syncopated way. And it was like, oh, that's really cool. Like, we're going to leave that in there. And some people might think, oh, you know, they fucked up on the doubling guitar part. No. We intentionally left that in there just to throw a curveball. And curveballs are really important to grab your attention, because, you know, you're kind of just tripping along. So something happens that you didn't expect. It's like, oh wow, what was that? And the average listener might not even really notice that, but they know something changed or something's different. It just adds more variety in not everything always being the same.
And it's like character, right? It's what then differentiates this song with any other one, right? Because when you're creating rock music, you kind of fall into a standard like template, right? And all songs are going to have a similar kind of blueprint of, you have a intro, you have a verse, you have a chorus, you have a verse, you have a bridge, you have a chorus, you have maybe like a solo part, and then you have an outro, right? So really there's not much variation on how you actually construct the song, but then what can really allow that song to shine through and to make itself really different from the others are these like magical moments, right? That are either going to come up spontaneously, or they are actually thought through. They're like, oh, there's something here that we can do in this moment. Let's add something here. And maybe you just don't quite know, and then you improvise it, and then it works out, right? Mm-hmm. And that's how I see the guitar solo, because I didn't come prepared with it. You know, even though you told me, you're like, hey, write the solo and come back. And I came back and you were like, do you have the solo? I was like, no. I mean, you remember my attitude of it? Like, no way, man, we're going to make it up on the spot. And it worked out so well, right? Like, I love that solo. It's like, it's simple, but it's just so expressive, right? And like, that's just what I was going for in the moment. I wanted to sing the kind of like tragedy of the chaos and the carelessness that the song is speaking of.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, about guitar solos, you know, when I say, yeah, go write a solo, you know, I don't mean have every note for note perfectly scored out like Beethoven would score his Ninth Symphony parts or whatever. Like, just have an idea of where it starts, where it's going, where it ends, kind of thing. Like, because even like with a guitar solo, it still has kind of a beginning, a middle, and an end to it. Like our typical, you know, 3-act scene, mm-hmm. sort of in theater or movie, film. Music is the same way, where you have A, B, C. You have your verse, A, B is your chorus, C is your bridge. Same with the guitar, so you can break it down to any part where there's an A part, a B part, and a C part. And a guitar solo can very, very much be looked at that way. But a lot of it depends on too how skilled you are as an improviser. Where don't worry about it. I'll just come up with something on the spot and it'll be great. And a lot of musicians are at that level, mm-hmm. and you've shown that too, and that's pretty much kind of how I approach it too. It's like, I have an idea of where I want to go and where I'm going to end, and so on and so forth. And then I might do a rough take of it and then listen to it. And then it's like, and then with my rough take, I'll refine certain notes. Okay, I don't want to play that note. I'll play this note. So it depends on how much effort you want to put into that in your pre-production phase. Or how much do you want to just let it, the general idea of what you want to do, sort of percolate in your mind, and then improvise it in the studio. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with improvising guitar solos. Sometimes the best solos you get are just strictly improvised, nothing thought of ahead of time.
Yeah, because it's so determined by feeling. That I find, like, when we go, like, say if we go to an event together and we're playing guitar and we're doing some like jazz thing, to me those moments are just perfect for me to improvise on feeling into the groove and feeling into what's being played, and to express something that is it's like you're talking to the people, right? And like, a good example of a guitarist is B.B. King. Like, B.B. King is this master of talking with his guitar, right? Mm-hmm, and just like the way that he solos, it just sounds like someone's singing, right? And so I keep that in mind as well in those moments. I'm wanting to sing with my guitar. And then when I think about writing solos for particular songs, then I'm thinking about what would actually fit, and what am I going to do to convey what my voice can't say. So like in our song Ghost Walker that we are releasing next, that was a good example because I did come prepared with that one, and then we had to make changes, right? Because then we're looking at the like that section of the song, and what I wrote, we were like, well, we can't do this because of that, we can't do this because of that, and then all of a sudden it gets flushed out, and then it's something that really fits with the tone and really fits with the mood of the song, right?
Mm-hmm. So now, no, just recap our production phase. So we've got all the parts down. We've rehearsed. Shouldn't need more than 3 to 5 takes to get everything down. And yeah, you've got your tone. You've got everything going. And the engineer's got all the levels set, and you're off to the races, getting really solid, good human performances, the best human performances you can get. And then you're ready to move on to the post-production, or typically mixing and mastering stage. But before we do that,
we are going to play a live performance of Careless. So over the last several weeks, I've been playing this song on acoustic, and I showed it to John, just like it's the same song with a little bit of a touch difference. And then he actually came up with some accompaniment on guitar. And so we're going to play that for you here and now. Of these homes made of That was our acoustic version of Careless. So for those of you listening, you're the first ones to hear this version. Yeah, I'm really happy with it. And this is what I love about being a musician and creating music, is the opportunity to take something that we've recorded and to reimagine it. And even though on my part, I'm playing what I play generally in the studio version, but to have John's accompaniment totally, I think, kind of changes the vibe. It gives us this more kind of like rustic feel. And it's interesting because what we just played, to me, is more so what I had in my mind of what the song sounded like. And so to go from the studio version and what we finished with to now this whole new version that we can package and release, it gives me these cool ideas of what we can do for the future, right? And we have an idea for Favors, a song that we released last year. That was our first rock song, to do another acoustic version, and to take a look at each song that we've done and to do a kind of acoustic version, like regardless of what style it is. The next song that we're releasing, Ghost Walker, is like clearly a metal song, and then to transpose it into something acoustic. And I actually have in mind to do more of like a slower kind of finger picking style kind of song.
Yeah, and it's good to have different versions of your songs out there. I mean, I think it was the Beatles that first started that with Hey Jude. Remember that live version of Hey Jude where they're just playing acoustic, and I think Ringo was hitting some kind of like suitcase or something for a drum, or I don't know what it was, I forget. Yeah. But and they had a small little audience recording that, and this was like fantastic.
Yeah.
Now we're on to our third phase of post-production, which consists of two phases. One being the mixing, and the second being mastering. So now you've recorded all your tracks in the studio, and you might have hired a separate mixing engineer to mix those tracks. So you send them off to your mixing engineer, or it could be the same producer that you recorded the stuff in the studio with. In our case, my son is a mixing engineer, and he mixed all the records, all the recordings that we've done, the songs that we've done, and so we hand it off to him once we got all the sounds done. And in the mixing involves a lot of other little steps. So now your mixing engineer has all the raw tracks that you've got recorded from the studio, and he's going to just generally set levels on them to kind of get them all level so everything sounds kind of balanced. And right there, even before doing any processing, any equalization, any compression, any effects like delay or reverbs or side chaining different things to create a parallel compression or whatever it is that the mixing engineer has in his toolbox, even before doing any of that processing stuff, the mix should sound pretty good. It should sound like, just all the raw tracks by themselves sound really good. Then the mixing engineer will go and he'll go through each track, and he might actually, before mixing, he might have someone else that works with him as an editor, or he might do the editing himself. So he'll go in and he or she may go in there and edit some things. Some things may be way off time that he needs to time correct a little bit. There may be places where there's other noises going on a track, like say for a vocal track, where the vocalist might have been just coughing or something, and they got to take out those little, just these empty spaces where there's stuff that you don't want in the mix. Taking out other kind of drum editing is a big thing. It actually takes a lot of and again, you don't want to time correct everything, so it's like a metronome. Like electronic music is like so quantized so perfectly quantized. You want to leave some room for that drum track to kind of move, and there'll be things where where you don't want to mess with it too much because it's a real human feel to it, and you don't want to edit all that stuff out.
Because when you hear the term like the groove of the song, it's that there's this undulation in the time that it's being played in, where it's not perfectly on beat, and everyone is basically like mechanical in what they're doing. The technique is that you'll have the percussion, you have the drums that is basically setting the foundation for the timing, and then you have the bass and you have the guitars and you have the vocals that are, the bass might be a little bit ahead of the drum. So when the beat goes on in the drum bass, the bass notes aren't right on with it, because then some of the bass notes will just be totally absorbed by the bass, right? By the bass drum or the toms. And so like the bass might be falling a little bit behind, just slightly, or a little bit ahead, just so it creates this groove that you can actually feel that you have humans playing music. It's not like EDM, where like EDM is like almost exactly perfect on time, you know? And so you want an organic feel in your mix, so that it almost is indistinguishable between what you're hearing and as if you'd hear it live.
Right. And let's say in the chorus part, you might want the guitar to kind of push ahead, like to be a little bit anticipated, a little bit ahead of the beat, to like drive that song's momentum forward.
Yeah.
And that's what I find works really nicely, especially in rock, is to have the guitar a little bit ahead of everything else. And it kind of pulls you into it more.
Yeah. That's like when you have the term like driving. It's
and
like
I'm not talking about like, I'm talking like milliseconds, like 10 milliseconds. Doesn't sound like much, but it makes a difference in the groove.
Yeah. And yeah, like I was just saying, like it's like the driving sound of the song that kind of pushes the song forward. And if when you're and this is something that I picked up just working with you, that I never really considered any of that until you started to show me, like, well, look, like how we recorded and how we're putting these things together. You can kind of hear that the guitar is kind of behind the drums, and from doing that, it kind of like the drums overshadow the guitar. And so, and even Ryan was showing me this too. He was like, look, if I just like, if we bump it forward, then the guitar suddenly shines out and the drums are just a support for that like driving energy. And so, yeah, and it does signify a pretty big difference when you kind of train your ear for that. Cause I know, what song, like I keep mentioning Ghostwalker. I think we had that in Ghostwalker too, that we really wanted, like the meat of those like heavy metal chords to come out.
Yeah. And your mixing engineer he'll kind of make the call on those type of things. And based on his experience, how what he's done in the past, and how knowledgeable he is, and how he interprets how the groove should go in the song. And usually the mix engineer, and then he'll add on each track, he'll add certain types of compression and equalization. Like for example, on vocals, you're mostly always pulling off, doing a high pass filter. So you're eliminating a lot of the low end frequencies in the voice, which they don't project out. They just create more muddiness in the low frequencies. So you eliminate those, and then it brightens just by eliminating the low frequencies in the vocals, brings out the vocal more, brings out the high frequencies more. And how I mix vocals is I rarely ever, or anything for that matter, I rarely ever boost EQ. Like, there's a lot of YouTubers I see out there saying, "Oh, here's all the places where you boost EQ, like boost 1K here, or boost 5K, or boost 220K." And it's like, no, if you've got good recorded sounds to begin with, you don't need to do any of that. And by doing that, you're probably just screwing up the mix more. If anything, you're pulling out some things that you don't want in there. like pulling out some frequencies you don't want. And with guitars as well, with the rock guitar, you don't need much bottom end on the rock guitar because that's the bass's area. So the guitars might sound thin just by themselves, but you add everything else back in and they're like bright and right up there where you want to hear them. And the bass, filling in all the bass frequencies, like compensates for the lack of low frequencies in the guitar. So anyway, that's getting to more details in mixing, which is this isn't about.
Like, just to make it clear. So when we are considering EQ, equalizing, is that on a spectrum, you have high end, middle, and low end. And essentially what that means is the high end are like the high frequency, like kind of like tinny, high pitched sounds. And the middle is like the mid range where
kind of your vocal is
where
in
your
that
vocal
area.
is going to be, where you're going to hear the like clearly the sounds of the instrument. And then the low end is going to be the low frequency, like bass, heavy rumbling sounds. And so EQing the mix is that you're finding a balance between the three. And so, so what John is saying, but with the guitar, where we're taking the low end out, we're taking the like heavy kind of bass out of the guitar so that it makes space for the bass guitar itself and the bass drum of the kick drum. And so that you're really isolating what lives in these areas. So like in the low end, your bass is going to live in the low end, your vocal and your kind of some guitar parts are going to live in the mid. And then in the higher registers, that's where I think you could have like some synth and some instruments that would just be in that upper range. And that could be like other vocals, that could be like some backing vocals.
And you've got a lot of drums, all the brass cymbals and the drums, they live in that area. And anything else that has those high frequencies in the signal are in that area as well. And that's not an area that you want to generally boost. What else? So there's a lot of processing that goes on in the mix. And a mixing engineer will generally have several mixes for you to listen to. Like, here's version 1, here's a version 2, and which one do you like or don't like, and what changes you want. So you'll go back and forth between the mixing engineer to get the final write off or sign off on what you like the most, which mix you want to pick, and then once that's done and you've listened to it on different places in your car, on your stereo at home, with your earbuds, some good headphones, and once you're happy with that, then you sign that off, and then it gets sent off to your mastering engineer, which could be the same person that's mixing it, could be the same person that produced it, could be a guy that does everything like me. And well, in this case, no, Ryan, he did the mixing, and then I did the mastering after that. And then the final stage of post-production is your mastering.
Yeah, I just want to say that in this whole process, I've come to really appreciate what Ryan does, because holy shit, that's just like a whole other world of considering music. And I had this thought that there's this undervalued appreciation for music just generally in the public, because we have access to so much of it at any point through streaming platforms, through the radio, where you can just hear a song for a split second and decide right then and there that you don't like it and change a channel or change it. And yet there was so much work that went into making that one song. And so I keep that in mind now, and I think, okay, well, I think I'm just going to give more music a chance to listen to, because I now know the back end stuff. So it kind of does a disservice to these people that put in a lot of work to just like hear a song for 3 seconds and be like, that's shit. And then like change it. Like, even if you don't like it, like there's a lot of music I don't like, but I'm still going to listen to it and be like, oh, okay, that's neat. And you know, at least give them the credit that's due. And that's just because now I'm like, I saw what Ryan had to go through, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad he's doing it, not me.
Yeah. And as a mixing engineer as well, a good practice that any good mixing engineer would have is like, they don't spend like 8 hours on one song all at once. Like a couple hours, you get a let's say your first rough pass of the mix in a couple hours. Then you come back the next day and you listen to it. And then you think, okay, yeah, this needs to be tweaked here. This needs to come up here. This needs to come down there. Snare drum's too loud over here. Stuff like that. And then you do another couple hours and come up with a revision. Then come back the next day. It depends too, again, how soon the client wants that mix in their download or whatever.
Yeah.
But usually you'd have time, like as a mixer, to because you get ear fatigue after a couple hours of mixing. Your ears are fatigued and you don't know what you're hearing anymore. You could make a change, and the longer that you keep working on it and the more changes you make, you could just be making it worse, and you're not even noticing that, oh no, it's getting worse from where it was. Yeah. So that's why, I put a limit on like a couple hours on a mix, and then I go away for a day, come back to it, spend a couple more hours, and do that process until I'm happy with what I'm hearing, and I've tested out how it translates to different sound systems. And I use headphones too while I'm doing that to check it on the headphone, on a really good quality mixing headphone, and in my car and stuff like that. And then it's ready to send out to the client and say, okay, so they're going to check it on different systems as well. And then we're ready to go to mastering. And once the mastering is, again, the final step, excuse me, in the process, where a mastering engineer will take your stereo mix, usually the stereo mix from your mixing engineer, and he puts it into his mastering system. And basically the mastering has to do with some subtle changes in equalization and a limiting. So we're looking at putting a limiter on and some EQ. It depends. Sometimes all the tones are there that you need, and all it needs is a little bit of limiting to bring the loudness up to what industry loudness is, and without having any real brick wall limiting. That's kind of a passé thing. Back in the Green Day, brick wall limiting was a big thing, where they would squash the hell out of that mix so that everything was like limited to the max, where when you look at the wave file, it's just like a brick. You don't see any transients. You don't see any dynamics in there. It's just one big loud sound all the way through. And not many people do that anymore. Electronic music is somewhat still doing that for the most part, I think. But generally, what was I going to say? Generally about in the mixing. Yeah, generally what we talked about in the mixing is, these are just general things, like where, for example, taking out the low frequency of guitar. I mean, it's all subjective. It's depends so much on what the song is, what the sounds are, and there's no like set rule, like, yeah, you always take out low frequency on a guitar, but it just depends on the type of music, the type of genre, style, and sound and everything.
Yeah, and because we're particularly making rock, and there's a certain kind of accompaniment that we have to take that into consideration, right? And we want it to be a big sound, right? Depending on the song, of course, right? Like there's kind of like ballad rock songs where it's on acoustic and, it's a little bit softer. But for the most part, when you think of rock and roll music, it's big sounds. It's big and loud instruments and solos and like heavy drums and...
Yeah, like for the acoustic version that we just did, I'll probably go in there and actually boost the low frequencies on the guitars. Because with just two acoustic guitars, well, this being a semi-acoustic, there's no low frequencies really coming through. So I'll probably boost them a little bit just to give it more warmth and feel to it.
Yeah.
And that makes a big difference there. So we got mastering done, and then it gets sent to the client, and the mastering engineer might have several versions to listen to, like where maybe he needed to put on a EQ to boost the low frequencies a little bit to give it more oomph on the bottom end, and maybe he added a little bit more. This is where you might add a high shelf to boost the really high frequency, like the sibilance frequencies, to give it more sparkle. And sometimes they'll run that through actual hardware, mastering hardware, or sometimes, and probably a lot of time now, they're just using plugins that do the same thing. And there's a kind of a different slopes of the EQ that he'll play with to see, okay, how does this really make the song feel more impactful across the full range of the frequencies, where, like I said, the low frequencies might need a little bit of a boost or whatever, and then add another level of compression, like just slight compression to tighten everything up, but still leave enough dynamics in it so that it's not all sounding just all loud all the way through, right?
Yeah.
And then that goes through a few revisions, and then once the client's happy with that, sign off, and you're ready to release that song.
Yeah, so it's a hell of a process, right? As you've heard, and this whole process is what allows us to enjoy music the way that it is. I mean, it's an engineering feat. If you were to think of music from back in like the 30s and the 40s and what technologies they had and like the way that they were recording them, and a lot of times they had to record it in one take.
Yeah, it was one mic in the room.
Yeah.
And it was getting cut to vinyl as they're recording it, right? Cut to vinyl.
Yeah.
They didn't have tape back then.
No. And so to basically have the whole music industry and the technology evolve to what we have now, to the point where we can make like crystal clear music, and that just really allows for the artist's creativity to come out, is really like a privilege that we have. And so this is what I take into consideration in moving forward, because I want to continue growing as an artist, and I want to make things better. And it's like we were saying earlier, where, you know, when we have our final mix and it's mastered, and like maybe we're not happy with a couple things, we take into consideration what we're not happy with, and when we transfer that to the new song, so we know like, okay, this is what we don't do. And so if it means like we just take a step back from the mic so that I pronounce my S's and my P's and my T's really like sharply. So that's something to take into consideration, so that I take a step back from the mic and then things are a little bit softer. And then for me personally, just being really prepared. And so that's why I'm really excited to start getting going on this next song that we're recording, because I'm like, I know it, you know, front to back. I have all the parts. The only thing that's missing is the guitar solo, but I think I want to like do that element of like, no, let's leave that for last. Let's go in and then just like rock it out, you know? Because I know the chords that I'm playing, and so all we have to do is, okay, what key are we playing in? What chords are we going through? Okay, we can play this key. We can maybe do like add this like kind of other little key in there, and or scale, and just like have fun with it in that sense, where then the magic can come through in that moment. Yeah, and I think I just wanted to ask you personally some other questions, because you've been doing this for so long, right? Now, like you started like in the late 70s and really got into it in the 80s. How do you maintain like your passion for this? Like, how do you like kind of feel that there's still like energy in you to continue doing this stuff?
That's a good question. So it was about the late 80s coming into the 90s where, after having been in many cover bands playing all kinds of music from just top 40 pop rock and to country and variety, which she played a bit of everything, country, pop, rock, and bands and duos that were run on MIDI programmed tracks. That was kind of the last band that I was in, a vocalist, female vocal. So we did a lot of female vocal songs, of course, and then I had a repertoire of songs I would sing as well. And I'd program everything on a MIDI computer at that time. It was around 80, 89. MIDI came out in around 83, and I started learning about it and got some different computers to be able to use it. And then around 89, 90 is where the last band that I was with, female vocal, me on guitar and vocals, and we had a van and everything in the van, and we traveled around Alberta. Made really good money, like a 6-nighter gig up in Rainbow Valley or Rainbow Lake. Ever been to Rainbow Lake?
Yeah, I think
in
so,
the winter.
Yeah. Not in the winter.
Oh my God, yeah, it's like minus 40 degrees, Rainbow Lake, and you got a six night gig there, and you're staying in the hotel, so you got your accommodations paid for, and making pretty good cash. You get paid cash at the end of the week, and drive off to your next gig. And after that ended, it was I became a father. I needed to get a real job. People say, "Oh, don't quit your day job." It's like, well, I never had one. So now my whole life just changed from there, and I still continued on exploring music and got the latest digital audio, one of the first digital audio workstations that came out at that time for Windows, and still played around and did much. But as far as being a musician, being out there gigging, all that was done over for me. Eventually, I just stopped playing guitar. There was a period of maybe about 10 years where I just had no interest in it whatsoever. I was done. And then something changed. It was my son who turned 18, and he was kind of a nerd. And we're talking about Ryan now, who's our mixing engineer. He was kind of a nerdy kid, playing video games and Pokemon, and what else were they doing back then?
Guitar Hero.
Guitar Hero, yeah. So he was learning Guitar Hero. He actually won got a first prize in a Guitar Hero competition, and was interviewed on breakfast television in Edmonton, and then he turned 18, and it's like, next thing he comes and he says, "Yeah, Dad, I want to learn how to play guitar." And like, his mom and I were in the band before that, and that's why we had to quit, because he was coming along, and we'd never ever said, "Oh, why don't you do music lessons or this?" We just let him do what he wanted as a kid. Mm-hmm. And he came to it all on his own through learning all these classic rock guitar solos that he would learn on Guitar Heroes. And it's like, okay, so we went to Axe Music, bought him his first electric guitar. I gave him a couple of lessons, showed him, how to map out the fretboard and different chords and major minor chords. And then, it was like 2 or 3 lessons. And then he didn't ask me anything after that. It's like he just went on his own, just similar to how I did when I started learning guitar. And he was off playing Yngwie Malmsteen solos in his and that's
impressive.
In his high
Yngwie
school,
Malmsteen is savage.
Yeah. In his high school rock band option, back when I was in high school, they didn't have rock. You played the tuba or the violin or something, right?
Yeah. Was that at JP? Did he go to JP?
That was at Paul Kane High School in St. Albert.
Oh yeah, you're in St. Albert. Yeah, because I think by then they had actually guitar as an option in music by itself.
Yeah, it was the rock.
Yeah, they had that
rock
band. It was like
option.
that at JP too. Yeah.
Yeah, and they did a concert at the end of the year too, and everything. And he's up there doing his thing, and I was like, and then one day I had a talk with him. I said, "Ryan, you know, you can be the greatest guitar player in the world, have all these fancy licks and do all this stuff, but if you're not the singer in the band, then you're really just a side attraction, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have the same kind of like clout unless you're the front man, the singer. And I said, you know, think about learning how to sing. Like, he was really shy about that.
Mm-hmm.
And then he eventually just really took hold of that and started. It was the same thing with you. Like what happened with you is like, first he's got his eyes on being able to sing like, I don't know the names of these guys, but like Linkin Park and
yeah,
you know,
Chester Bennington.
Yeah. And I told him, I said, oh, you'll never be able to sing like that. You've got a soft voice like me. Like, you'll never sing like that. And again, he totally proved me wrong.
Yeah.
And he was the singer in his first band was that I produced and mixed and mastered was called Girl, Gurl, and they put out an album. We still got 2 boxes full of CDs at home that never really went anywhere. And he was the singer in that band, but it was more of he was very influenced by Green Day, and the whole record sounds like Green Day. Like, you can hear the influence right there, right away in his vocal. But he kind of moved on from that and in his next band after that, and as a singer, and it became more of a heavy rock thing. And now he's just a guitar player in the latest band he's with his half brother Evan, who's the singer.
Which is amazing.
King Theory.
Yeah, they're a killer band. I'm a fan.
Yeah, and they've been in the studio working on some songs. They got one released. But anyway, getting back to your question, yeah, I quit for a long time. I just had no enthusiasm, no desire to do anything, and it was like, yeah, the hopes of ever becoming a rock star was like, it totally vanished. And it was through Ryan becoming into the music that I got back into. My first DAW was Cubase. It was a hacked version of Cubase I got from a friend, but it was horrible. I just hated the program. It was so ridiculously hard to do anything with it. And then eventually heard about Reaper, and that's what we're using now is Reaper. And
it's super user friendly. Like, for me to be on the low end of like technical with this stuff, you know, just the little things that you've shown me on how to like start recording with it is so easy now. Now it's just like, it's basically just like plug and play. I just like set up and, you know, I have my like preset for my controls, and then like off I go. I can just immediately start recording with it.
And then a period came to after that where I just lost interest in it, and it was just not much happening. And then I met this young lady who was a singer, and we worked together for a while and did an album and a few singles by the name of Soleil Love. And then she quit in 2019. She quit, but even before that, I was still not really doing much and just not really feeling any motivation to do anything, because it was like, oh, what's the point? You know, there's so much music out there now, and every day there's 10,000 new songs going out there, and it's like, you know, why bother? Just it just seems so pointless and
yeah, which is interesting to hear, because I remember the first time, and I was talking to Robin George, about where I would have met you the first time, and it was at Sunbelly at Gratitude Stew. And like, to hear you say that, like, oh, there's like a 10-year period I stopped playing guitar, and then so that was around 2013. Because it was right before I moved in. It's when Olivia was living there. That must have been probably right around the time you like started getting back into playing guitar.
Yeah.
And I remember watching you play and being like, holy shit. This guy is a fucking master, you know? So to hear you say that, like, you took almost 10 years off, and then I'm seeing you play, and you're just like absolutely ripping on it. Is so interesting and mind blowing. Cause that left a major impression in me, cause that showed me, I was like, okay, I have a lot of work to do. I was like, at that point I was pretty confident in myself, cause I was playing acoustic guitar in yoga classes, and I would improvise for an entire hour. And I got so good at it that the point where I was making some of the best music at that point that I would ever make. I would almost go into a trance. I would just let my hands play, and I would let the teacher and the way that the teacher built the class kind of dictate how the music would come out. And so being at that point, and I was playing with, and I was just like experimenting with a few different open tunings. Like one of my favorite ones is like a D major 7 open tuning. It's like D, A, D, F sharp, A, C sharp. And it just sounds so amazing. But then I see you doing everything that you're doing, and I'm like, okay, that's like next. That's like 10 steps beyond me. And yeah, and so to have like have that seed planted in me, and then seeing where it's grown to, where we're like sitting in this room together, like talking about music, and we're showcasing music that we've created, is so interesting to think about that. Yeah. Like 10 years later.
I'm just laughing inside, thinking of when I first met you at a Zen party outside. Can I tell that story?
I don't know. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. We were sitting around the fire, and and everybody's doing their thing, whatever it is they're into, and you come walking up, and you'd have been drinking quite a bit that night.
Yeah, probably.
And you pick up a guitar, and you're like, I'm a yogi, and then you started doing something, and it was just like, and I'm like, oh my god, what's this guy doing? Like it was just so funny.
Oh my god, I don't remember that at all. That's so funny. Yeah, because I was probably like definitely wine drunk. I would always bring like a bottle of wine to the Zen Den parties. Yeah. And like 5 joints. I'm just like super high. Yeah. And to me, like knowing me, I probably just said that totally as a joke, like not serious at all, and like trying to be impressive, and and. To my credit, I bet there were people around it that were like, "Oh my god, that's so cool," and then you're like, "Oh my god, this is so lame."
Yeah. And then, getting back to your question and what keeps me motivated and inspired and the momentum going, the music, and it's working with people like you.
Yeah,
having people who are driven and motivated and really want to do as much as they can for the time that they have. And it was quite a setback in 2019. When Soleil Love decided to quit the music business, and I felt really like, okay, that's it, I'm done too. It's just like nothing. There's no point in doing any more electronic sort of pop music that we were doing, and then you come along with hiring me to do Mystical Rhythms. Yeah, your first record, instrumental record. A lot of people probably don't even know that you've done that, and you let me have kind of full reign of the whole production elements in combining your acoustic guitar playing with electronic production sounds. And that to me, I go and I listen to that now and then. I'm like, wow, that stuff is amazing. Like, what we did back then, and that started. It got us to where we are now.
Yeah, it really did set the stage, because it really showed how well we can work together. And, in my 22 years of being a guitarist and, growing up with one friend who showed me everything, right? He got me into all the classic rock and metal, but even though we got really good at doing covers together, we just couldn't make music together. It was really hard making music. we just didn't vibe well. Like I would show him something and then he would be like, well, why does that have to be the verse? Why can't that be the bridge? Why does it have to be this? So it was like, there wasn't this like feedback loop of like, oh sweet, that's a cool riff. What if I do this? You know, like we ended up making one song together. And anytime we would play, I was just over it. I was like, I think we can make better stuff. And then he would always come back to it and be like, well, I want to play our song that we made. And I was like, dude, we made that like 15 years ago. Like it's time to move on. Like, I don't remember what we did. Right. But, but then with you, it's just so easy, you know, I like playing together there. It's just like seamless. And it's because of the level that you're at and how you're like pulling me into it. You know, I don't ever feel like I'm kept in my place and you're like, oh yeah, I'm here and you'll never be here. Right. Like I remember when we were at Jonathan Fenton's house and there was like those other kind of guitarist dudes. Mm-hmm. I felt that's how they operate. That like, if you're not on their level, it's like, then they just like showboat what they can do. And they're just like, yeah. Like you don't get to do anything. Like,
yeah, like, and go sit over there.
Yeah. And it's discouraging, right? It's like, okay, well, yeah, what you're doing is really awesome. Like it's actually super impressive, but then you have a poor attitude. And I never got that with you. So, it was so easy to then create the music that we were creating because then the trust was there, right? Because I would show you something and then you'd be like, actually, I'm pretty impressed with that. Let's see what I can do with it. And then you just make it that much better with your knowledge, right? And that's what informed me that like, okay, I can come to you with this new idea. And that's why I was like, I want to make a rock album and I want to make rock music. And, you know, this is what's going to shape who I'm going to be as a musician, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and for musicians out there, if you got a band you're playing with, or just one other partner that you're making music with, and if the drive isn't there, I don't want to be so finalized in this comment that. If the drive isn't there, then you're wasting your time. Like, I mean, it depends what your goals are too.
Yeah.
But for a group of musicians that, let's say there's one person in the band who's, he just shows up just to show up, but he or she doesn't really have the drive or to really go. It can bring the whole group down. You need everybody on the same level of what the goal is and the drive and the passion behind what they're doing, regardless of what their fantasized outcome of it is, whether it's to be a big rock star or not. Like, yeah, to really keep the momentum going in the creating of new music, that drive's got to be there. If it's not, then sure, you can make music, but it's probably not going to be that good.
Yeah. And I think there is an ebb and flow. And when there's a good relationship, like with us, there'd be times where I feel kind of defeated and deflated. Right. And then you'd be like, just keep going, and vice versa. Right. Like there's times where we've had conversations where you're like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to give up. And I'm there to be like, no, man, like we've got to keep doing this. There's no rush. We have something good here, and it's just driving forward and getting this stuff done and putting it out there, and the opportunities will come, right? And I'm already seeing them come, and I'm already having conversations with people to do cool things, right? And so, and I have like new resources of people who are in a place where I can reach out to them, like Justin Kwong. I was talking to him recently because I met up with him back in September, and he gave me some great advice. So I just messaged him back and I was like, hey, the advice that you gave me, the two things that you told me to do and reach out, I did them and I landed them. And he was like, great, let's meet up and talk more and see like what we can do further. Right. And then, and so what's in my mind now is like, now I want to actually start doing gigs. Right. And I have some folks that I can actually talk to now to set up, some just easy gigs where you and I can go and do acoustic stuff. If it's just like, you know, for the most part, I'm playing on my own, you do the accompaniment on this song or that song. And it's now it's like, it's fun, you know, like now I'm like, now it feels like it is a career. Now it really feels like it is a job, and the opportunity to make money is that much closer. And so then it's exciting.
Yeah. And the other thing that keeps the inspiration going is to get out there in front of people and play, and even if it's just an open mic or whatever. And, and, you know, I would probably never go into being like on the road doing gigs on the road anymore. Like that's pretty much done for me a long time ago, but just, you know, local stuff around the place that keeps me inspired. It keeps me to keep my calluses hard on my playing guitar, and chance to, you know, network, meet with new people, and see what people are doing.
Yeah, because now, you know, we got to get people recording, and so we have a little crew, and I don't mean like, you know, you have like 20 or 30 or something clients. It's like, you know, if you have a capacity to take on a couple more people that you trust, that so you can see that, you know, there's a life to your business, and there's a life to that house. And that's what I told myself like a few years ago. I was like, I want to be the proof of it. You know, like I want to be the one where you go, Zorananda came into my house, and it took us like 4 to 5 years, and this is where we got, and this is the proof that it works. And so then it can be a magnet for people who want to come in and record something, right?
Yeah. And if you want to know more about my studio and what I do, it's atonicmusic.com. That's ATONIC music.com. And on Instagram, it's atonic.soundhouse. You can find me there.
So I think that's a good place to wrap up. I'll have links in the description of the podcast where you can find John, where you can find my website and our work together. Thank you so much for listening and diving into this whole world of music production. We're just a couple music nerds, and we look forward to releasing new music in the future. We have 4 more songs to release, and then after that, more songs to come. So thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Enjoy.